Serial 16. Why did God prepare a 14-year-old boy to restore his church? God was about to bring back the agency of man and open the floodgates of religious freedom. But first, he had to call a new living prophet to bring the people back from centuries of apostasy. God had already set a precedent of calling young prophets. In 1082 years before Christ, the Old Testament prophet Samuel was 12 years old when he was called to be a prophet of the Lord, according to the ancient Jewish historian Josephus. In 1425 AD, Joan of Arc was 13 years old when she began seeing visions which she believed were sent by God. In 1820, the Lord chose a 14-year-old boy to be his new prophet to restore his original church once again on earth. But first he had to lay the foundation of a new nation that would allow her citizens to have freedom of religion. In 1492, Christopher Columbus's miraculous discovery of a new continent had opened the way for the teeming masses of crowded Europe to be established in a new nation. Persecuted Protestants searching for religious freedom carried their Bibles with them as they flocked to the new continent. These colonial Christians who read the Bible were filled with an intense hunger for greater political and spiritual freedom that led to the establishment of laws securing separation of church and state, freedom of religion, and, as President Abraham Lincoln later said, government of the people, by the people, and for the people. The expansion of religious freedom accelerated. As a Christian in the early 1800s of America, you could be Adventist, Amish, Anglican, Baptist, Campbellite, Catholic, Congregationalist, Episcopalian, Lutheran, Mennonite, Methodist, Millerite, Presbyterian, Seeker, Shaker, Quaker, Unitarian, or a member of hundreds of other faiths, and each one of these denominations claimed to be the only true church of Jesus Christ. In the spring of 1820, Protestant, Methodist, Baptist, and Presbyterian churches at Palmyra, New York, were contending with each other for new converts. A 14-year-old boy named Joseph Smith attended the meetings of all three churches with his family, trying to decide which church to join. Joseph felt that surely one of these churches must be right, but he struggled with intense difficulty trying to discover which one of these contending denominations was the true church of Jesus Christ. As he sought an answer by studying the Bible, he came upon the first chapter and 5th verse of James, which reads, "If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him." Joseph Smith said, "Never did any passage of Scripture come with more power to the heart of man than this did at this time to mine. It seemed to enter with great force into every feeling of my heart. I reflected on it again and again, knowing that if any person needed wisdom from God, I did. For how to act I did not know, and unless I could get more wisdom than I then had, I would never know, for the teachers of religion of the different sects understood the same passages of Scripture so differently as to destroy all confidence in settling the question by an appeal to the Bible." Joseph gained a firm conviction that the only way to find out which denomination was the true Church of Christ was by a direct appeal to God. With determined faith, Joseph went to a grove of trees near his family's farm and knelt in prayer. What do you think Joseph prayed for? Why do you think he prayed for that? Joseph said, I saw a pillar of light exactly over my head, above the brightness of the sun, which descended gradually until it fell upon me. When the light rested upon me, I saw two personages whose brightness and glory defy all description, standing above me in the air. One of them spake unto me, calling me by name, and said, pointing to the other, This is my beloved Son. Hear him. I asked the personages who stood above me in the light, which of all the sects was right? For at this time it had never entered into my heart that all were wrong, and which I should join. I was answered that I must join none of them, for they were all wrong. And the personage who addressed me said that they teach for doctrines the commandments of men, having a form of godliness, but they deny the power thereof. Before restoring the original church of Jesus Christ back on earth, God the Eternal Father had chosen once again to speak to mankind. And the prophet he chose was a noble young man, likened to the prophet Samuel, who was also called in his youth, as recorded in the Old Testament. The mind of young Joseph had not been corrupted by the false religious creeds of the disputing Protestant denominations. Do you remember the cycle of apostasy and restoration? Whenever the people fell away from God, he had always chosen a living prophet to bring them back to him. The first step of restoring the true church of Jesus Christ was to call a living prophet. Here again we show the apostasy and restoration timeline. And at 1830 A.D., the Lord called the prophet Joseph Smith to restore the church of Jesus Christ. Serial 16 Summary. 1. God called a new living prophet to bring the people back from centuries of apostasy. 2. God had already set a precedence of calling young prophets. 3. Samuel was one of the greatest Old Testament prophets and was called at the tender age of 12 years old. 4. At the age of 13, Joan of Arc saw visions that said she would lead the French army against the English. 5. God laid the foundation of a new nation that would allow her citizens to have freedom of religion. 6. In the 1820s, America was ablaze with Protestant churches fighting against each other for new converts. 7. In Palmyra, New York, 14-year-old Joseph Smith visited these churches to find the true church of Christ. 8. Joseph read James chapter 1, verse 5, and decided the only way to find Christ's true church was by asking God. 9. With unwavering faith of a sincere young man, Joseph knelt in the woods and vocally prayed to God. 10. Joseph's prayer was answered. He saw and spoke with God the Eternal Father and his Son, Jesus Christ. To continue, see Serial 17. How is the Book of Mormon a second witness of Jesus Christ?